Hello there and welcome. I'm truly glad you found this quiet moment to join me. Wherever you are tonight, I invite you to set aside all distractions. Let the day slowly fade into the background. You're in a peaceful space now, a place of calm, gentle curiosity, and slow discovery. A time just for you, to relax, to breathe deeply, and to travel softly through the stories of long ago. Tonight, we'll journey into the fascinating and often strange world of medieval jobs. From the knocker-upper who tapped on windows to wake sleepy townsfolk, to the leech collector who hunted tiny bloodsuckers for medicine, and many other odd roles lost to time. These jobs may seem peculiar to us now, but they shaped the rhythms of daily life centuries ago. As we wander through these forgotten occupations, I invite you to imagine the sights, sounds, and stories behind each one. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Only if you truly enjoy these slow, thoughtful explorations of history's quieter corners. And please, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. It's always comforting to share this calm space with friends from around the world. Now, dim your lights. Maybe turn on a soft fan or some gentle background hum. Settle in, let your body relax. Take a deep breath in and gently let it out. Let's begin. Let's start with a job that stinks. Literally, the gong farmer was responsible for removing human waste from privies and cesspits. Gong was a polite medieval word for poop. So a gong farmer didn't harvest crops. He harvested filth, usually under the cover of night, because nobody wanted to see or smell what was going on. Dressed in the medieval equivalent of waterproof gear, which wasn't very waterproof, the gong farmer would climb into pits of waste, scoop it out by hand or shovel, and cart away. They were paid decently, since no one else wanted the job, but they were considered unclean, socially avoided, probably not invited to a lot of dinner parties. But here's the twist. Without them, cities would have drowned in their own filth. Gong farmers were the unsung sanitation heroes of their time. So the next time you complain about doing the dishes, just whisper to yourself, "At least I'm not knee-deep in 14th century sewage." Picture this. Someone dies. Their family is grieving. The priest has done his bit. But there's one more guest to invite before the burial, the sin eater. The job of the sin eater was spiritual digestion. Literally, a piece of bread, sometimes cheese or ale, would be placed on the deceased's chest. The sin eater would eat it, symbolically absorbing the sins of the dead, so the soul could pass on clean. It wasn't a formal church job. In fact, the church disliked it, seeing it as superstition. But among villagers and folk traditions, it was deeply respected and deeply eerie. Sin eaters lived on the fringes of society, half mystic, half outcast, paid in coin, food, or silence. Imagine being known as the one who eats spiritual leftovers for a living. That's commitment. That's dinner with consequences. In the narrow, winding streets of medieval towns, rats were more than just a nuisance. They were a persistent and dangerous problem. These small creatures thrived in the dark corners, feasting on food stores and spreading disease. The role of the rat catcher was crucial, as they were the unsung heroes in the battle to keep townsfolk safe and their food supplies intact. Armed with traps, sharp eyes, and sometimes fierce terrier dogs trained to hunt down vermin, the rat catcher prowled the alleys and marketplaces. Their work was dirty, often unpleasant, and sometimes dangerous, facing rats that could bite or carry deadly infections. This job demanded patience and courage. The rat catcher needed to be alert to every rustle and movement in the shadows, knowing that a single rat could multiply quickly if left unchecked. Their skillful trapping helped prevent outbreaks of diseases like the plague and save valuable food from being spoiled. Imagine the fading light of dusk casting long shadows through stone alleyways. A figure cloaked in worn leather moves quietly, lantern in hand, accompanied by a small terrier whose sharp eyes and keen nose are constantly scanning for movement. Barrels and refuse line the streets, the perfect hiding places for their quarry. Though unseen by most, the rat catcher's work was vital for the health and survival of the town. Their quiet vigilance kept the darkness at bay, protecting the community from one of the most insidious threats of medieval life. Sounds like a grim job, because it was in a time when disease spread like wildfire and doctors a few tools. Identifying the dead quickly was vital. So, towns employed a body sniffer, whose job was to smell corpses and confirm death or the presence of illness. It was a role filled with danger and unpleasantness, but necessary. The body sniffer's keen nose helped prevent premature burial and kept infections from spreading. Imagine the sharp scent of damp earth mixed with herbs, decay, and the faint hope of life lost or found. Nobles and royalty loved their pets. Dogs, hawks, monkeys sometimes. But pets were status symbols, and keeping them happy was a serious job. Enter the royal pet keeper, who fed, cleaned, and entertained these animals daily. Not just any pet care, but lavish, often demanding routines. Some were even in charge of exotic birds, training them for hunt or court entertainment. Pet keepers lived in the shadow of grand halls, but had their own unique kingdom. This one is almost poetic. Medieval nobles often had to host formal events where silence and decorum were prized. So they hired silent watchers, people whose entire job was to sit silently in rooms, watching guests to maintain order and report back on any suspicious behavior. No speaking, no moving unnecessarily, just stillness. Some even practiced the art of sitting perfectly still for hours. The role was equal parts guard, spy, and living statue. Long before the dawn of newspapers, radios, or the endless scroll of social media, the town's news traveled on the powerful voice of the town crier. This was the person entrusted with the vital task of keeping the community informed, connected, and sometimes entertained. In the bustling heart of the medieval town square, the town crier's arrival was a moment everyone knew to notice. Clad in colorful robes or a simple tunic, they carried a large, shiny bell, sometimes ornate, sometimes plain, used to capture attention across noisy streets and busy markets. With a strong, booming voice, the crier would announce the day's news, royal proclamations, upcoming events, lost animals, market days, or urgent warnings. Sometimes, the crier even shared whispers of gossip or the latest town quarrels, for in times past, news was both serious and social. Imagine the stillness of early morning. Just as the market is about to awaken, the crier steps into the cobblestone square, raises the bell, and rings a sharp, clear chime that cuts through the cool air. Slowly, the townsfolk emerge from doorways and shops, their chatter dimming as the crier's voice rises and echoes between timbered buildings. Their words were carefully crafted, measured yet lively, to ensure everyone, young and old, could hear and understand. This was a job requiring stamina, courage, and an unmistakable presence, for sometimes a crier would deliver news unwelcome or unsettling. Yet, their role was crucial in a world without newspapers, phones, or the internet. The town crier was a living, breathing bulletin board of medieval life, a link between rulers and the ruled, a voice that shaped the rhythm of daily existence. So, picture the scene once more. The medieval square bathed in soft daylight, cobblestones worn smooth by countless footsteps, townspeople dressed in simple clothes gathered around. The town crier stands tall and proud, bell raised high, ready to share the news that will carry through the streets and into the hearts of the people. Before the age of electric lights, candles were the primary source of illumination after the sun dipped below the horizon. In medieval times, the glow of a single candle could transform a dark room into a warm, inviting space. This was thanks to the skilled hands of the candle maker, also known as the chandler. Making candles was no simple task. It involved carefully melting tallow, rendered animal fat, or the more expensive beeswax, then pouring the liquid wax into molds or dipping wicks repeatedly to build up layers. This process required patience, precision, and an eye for quality, as each candle needed to burn steadily and brightly. The candle maker's workshop was a place of quiet industry, filled with the gentle flicker of candle flames even during the day. The air smelled faintly of wax and smoke, and the soft, golden light illuminated tools, molds, and rows of drying candles in various shapes and sizes. Candles were more than just practical. They held symbolic importance in churches, where their light was seen as a spiritual beacon, and in lordly halls, where they added an air of grandeur and comfort. For common folk, a candle meant safety and warmth after dark, a tiny beacon against the night's chill and shadows. Picture the candle maker's careful hands, pouring melted wax into a mold, watching it slowly harden. Imagine the warmth of the workshop, glowing softly from dozens of flickering candles, a small refuge of light and peace in the medieval world. Their craft was vital, illuminating homes, chapels, and streets, creating a moment of comfort and security in an otherwise dim and unpredictable world. In the absence of modern police forces, the safety of medieval towns rested heavily on the shoulders of the town watchmen. These vigilant guardians patrolled the streets after sunset, tasked with keeping the peace, enforcing curfews, and sounding alarms if danger loomed. Their presence was a reassuring sight in the dark hours when shadows lengthened and mystery deepened. Watchmen were often armed with simple but effective weapons, halberds, clubs, or spears, to defend against thieves, troublemakers, or wild animals. Draped in chainmail or thick cloaks, they cut a figure both practical and intimidating. They called out the hours in steady cadence, their voices carrying to the silent streets, marking time and reminding townsfolk that someone was always watching. Beyond enforcing laws, these watchmen were the first responders to fires, riots, or invasions. Their keen eyes and ears scanned the darkness, alert for any sign of trouble, a faint noise, a flicker of movement, or suspicious gatherings. At times, they were both the town's protectors and its night owls, walking long shifts beneath the moonlit sky. Picture a narrow, cobblestone street shimmering faintly under the pale moonlight. A solitary watchman stands alert, lantern in hand, spear resting by his side. His cloak rustles softly in the chill night breeze as he listens for the quietest hint of disturbance. Around him, the shadows play tricks on stone walls and wooden doors, but his steady gaze pierces the gloom, ready for whatever the night may bring. Though their role was demanding and often dangerous, town watchmen were essential to the rhythm of medieval life, weaving safety and order to the fabric of the night. The millwright built and maintained the complex wood machinery of medieval mills, the engines of villages' daily bread. But don't picture some dusty fellow fiddling with a wrench. No, the medieval millwright was a fusion of carpenter, engineer, and gentle genius. Without their handiwork, the great wooden water wheels wouldn't spin. And without that, no flour, no bread. And we all know how grumpy a medieval peasant could get without bread. Now, picture this. It's early morning, and the mist still hugs the riverbanks like a sleepy cat curled on the windowsill. A large wooden watermill creaks gently as it will turn slowly in the current. Splash, creak, splash. The gears inside grind with a patient rhythm, as though time itself is being ground into powder. And there stands the millwright, cloaked in wool, smelling faintly of sawdust and river moss, gently tapping a gear with a wooden mallet. He mutters to himself, perhaps arguing with a stubborn cog, or maybe whispering secrets only millwrights understand. He didn't just fix things when they broke. Oh no, he designed the watermill from scratch, measured the flow of the river, calculated the size of the wheel, shaved each tooth of the wooden gear to mesh perfectly with his partner. It's not glamorous, but it's precision, and without it, the bread doesn't rise. The porridge stays lumpy. Society crumbles. Well, maybe not all at once, but you get the idea. And let's not forget, being a millwright wasn't exactly a cushy desk job. One day you're perched in the rafters of a mill house, tightening a rope. Next day, you're waist deep in a freezing river, trying to clear a blockage with a crowbar and a prayer. And always, you're covered in with shavings, oil, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you keep the bread flowing. So tonight, if you hear the gentle creak of a floorboard or the ticking of a clock, just imagine the rhythmic thrum of those old water wheels, turning in the dark, driven by rivers older than time, maintained by the quiet hands of an unsung hero, the millwright, making sure the world keeps turning one wooden cog at a time. Ah, yes, the town barber. Today, when we think of a barber, we imagine the comforting buzz of clippers, the soft snip of scissors, and maybe a little small talk about the weather. But in medieval times, stepping into barber shop was a bit like entering a peculiar combination of a salon, a doctor's office, and, well, a low-key horror show. The town barber wasn't just in charge of your hairstyle. Oh no. This fellow was also your go-to for tooth extractions, bloodletting, and even the occasional minor surgery. Need a tooth pulled? The barber has you covered. Feeling feverish? He'll drain your blood. Need a blister lanced or a boil removed? You guessed it. Same guy who just shaved your uncle's beard. It's a little unsettling, really. Imagine sitting in a wooden chair. Try to explain that you just want to trim, but instead of magazines on a table, you see leather straps, iron tongs, and a tray of mysterious sharp tools laid out like medieval cutlery. And next to them, a blood-stained rag, and a bowl that definitely wasn't used for soup. But let's not be too harsh. These barbers were respected professionals. Well, mostly, they provided services people couldn't get anywhere else. In villages without physicians, the barber was the closest thing to medical help. Sure, his methods were unorthodox, and perhaps a little scream-inducing, but he meant well. Probably their iconic symbol, the barber pole, has red for blood, white for bandages, and sometimes blue to represent veins. Yes, that cheerful candy-striped twirl we see today. It's a relic of a time when barbers casually switched between styling bangs and performing impromptu surgeries. Step into one of these shops and you'd hear the rhythmic sound of shears, interrupted occasionally by the grunt of someone having a molar yanked out with a pair of pliers, followed perhaps by the soothing clink of a coin being dropped into a wooden bowl. Picture the scene now. A modest stone wall room with warm candlelight flickering against iron tools. A long wooden bench lines the back wall, where a handful of villagers sit and wait, one clutching his jaw, another nervously fingering his hairline. And at the center, the barber, calm, focused, humming a little tune as he sharpens his blade on a leather strap. The air smells of herbs, wax, and something faintly coppery. The atmosphere? Surprisingly serene, considering the activities within. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, think of the medieval barber. Steady hands, sharp blades, unclear qualifications. The man who could give you a fresh shave and remove your spleen, all before lunch. Sleep well, and remember, next time you're at the salon, be thankful all they offer is shampoo and conditioner, not surgery. Ah, the scribe, a figure of quiet dignity, hunched patiently over parchment, quill in hand, long before printers whirred and keyboards clicked. In a time when books were rare treasures, the scribe was the invisible hand behind every word, every illuminated page, every carefully inked letter that carried knowledge from one century to the next. Imagine a world with no Control+C, No quick printouts, no spell check. If you wanted a second copy of a book, someone had to sit down and write the whole thing out, word by word, letter by letter, and that someone was a scribe. Now, being a scribe wasn't just about neat handwriting. No, it was an art form of devotion. Each page took hours. Each paragraph, a commitment. Each sentence, a prayer that the ink wouldn't smudge before it dried. Their quills, cut from goose feathers, had to be sharpened constantly. The ink, brewed by hand from oak galls and soot. And the parchment, often animal skin, smooth with pumice stone, carefully measured. It wasn't just writing. It was a delicate dance between patience and precision. Picture scriptorium, a hushed, echoing room tucked away in a corner of a medieval monastery. Wooden desks arranged in rows. Scrolls stacked carefully in the corners. Candles flickered gently, casting long shadows that sway like monks at prayer. And at each desk sits a scribe, cloaked in wool, eyes narrowed, lips silently mouthing each word as he transcribes a Latin passage for 3 hours straight. Sometimes they decorate the margins with swirling vines, golden leaves, or little doodles of animals doing things animals definitely never did. A rabbit jousting with a snail? Yes, that happened. A cat playing a harp? Entirely possible. Even the most disciplined scribes got a little whimsical after page 247 of The Lives of the Saints. It wasn't glamorous work. Their backs ached. Their eyes strained. They rarely got credit. But without scribes, much of what we know about the Middle Ages, about classical philosophy, astronomy, medicine, and theology would be dust, lost to time like so many forgotten footsteps. And every so often, in the margins of ancient manuscripts, historians find little notes, whispers from across time, like, "I am very cold," or "This parchment is bad," and occasionally, "Thank God it is finished," because even scribes got tired. Even scribes long for a warm fire, a soft bed, and a break from copying line after line of medieval Latin. So tonight, as you settle into bed, eyes growing heavy and the world softening around the edges, spare a thought for the scribe, quietly writing by candlelight, preserving the past so we might one day read it, hear it, and fall asleep to it. Thank you, dear scribe. May your ink always flow and your quill never splinter. Before cities twinkle with electric lights, before street lamps lined every corner, and headlights sliced through the dark, there was the lantern bearer. In the medieval world, night was not just a time, it was a realm of uncertainty. The sun dipped behind the hills, and darkness descended like a thick woolen cloak. Shadows lengthened, paths vanished. The wind seemed to whisper secrets between alleyways. And amid that soft, swallowing blackness came the glow of a lantern, swaying gently, swinging in rhythm with the steps of a lone figure, the lantern bearer. Their task? Simple but vital, to light the way, to guide travelers, merchants, and late-night wanderers through twisting, cobbled streets, to ensure that safety, or at least visibility, accompanied those who dared walk after sundown. By day, they might have been overlooked, a quiet laborer, perhaps, or an assistant to the town watch. But by night, they were guardians of the glow, clad in a heavy cloak against the evening chill. They'd set out just after twilight, a wooden pole in hand, topped with an iron-framed lantern, its flame dancing with every movement. Some lanterns burned oil, others held tallow candles, flickering, smoky, and short-lived. But for those walking beside that light, it was a beacon of comfort, of direction, a moving star on a winding street. The lantern bearer often knew the town like the lines on their own hands. They knew which stones were loose, which alleys smelled like cabbage water, and which corners the stray cats liked to sleep on. They could lead the mayor home from a long council meeting, or help a traveler find the right inn without ending up in the fishmonger's cellar. And it wasn't just about light. The presence of the lantern and the person who carried it helped deter thieves and mischief makers. No one wants to get up to no good when someone's literally shining a light on them. Some towns even made a requirement. If you wanted to be out past curfew, you needed a lantern or a lantern bearer by your side. Walking without one wasn't just foolish. It could be illegal, but like many medieval jobs, the lantern bearer's work was uncelebrated. They weren't heroes. They weren't saints. But they made the dark a little less frightening. So imagine now the scene. A misty medieval street, cobblestone still wet from a passing rain, shutters closed, windows dark. A gentle breeze rustles the hem of a cloak, and through the quiet, tap, 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 come the steady footsteps of the lantern bearer. The lantern glows warmly, casting soft golden halos on the worn stones below. Each flicker pushes back the shadows just a little, and though few take notice, for someone walking home, or a guard on patrol, or a child peeking from behind a shutter, that small, swinging light means everything. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let your mind follow the lantern bearer. Step by step, soft light, stone streets, cool air and quiet peace. For even in the darkest nights of the past, someone was always walking ahead, carrying the light. And so, our quiet journey comes to an end. From the shadows of the gong farmer's trench to the flickering light of the lantern bearer's path, we've wandered through the strange, often forgotten corners of medieval life. Through candlelit halls and cobbled streets, we've met the unseen hands that kept old towns alive. The whisperers, the watchers, the cleaners, the criers, jobs odd and thankless, but each, in its own way, essential. They may not be the names sung in ballads or carved into monuments, but without them, the castles would crumble, the streets would darken, and the towns would fall silent. Tonight, perhaps, you'll dream of narrow alleyways and glowing lanterns, of the scent of wax and parchment, of bells calling out through the fog. Or maybe you'll simply drift into sleep, knowing that somewhere in the past, someone always kept watch. Thank you for wandering with me, dear listener. May your dreams be quiet, your night peaceful, and your imagination forever curious. Until next time, sleep well.